Welcome to the Marketing Millennials, the No BS Marketing Podcast. I'm Daniel Murray, and join me for unfiltered conversations with the brains behind marketing's coolest companies. The one request I tell our guests, stories or it didn't happen. Get ready to turn the up.
The more we can see BTS that includes the team, that includes the founder, if they have a really bubbly personality, if you will, that matches with the actual product or the brand, that's even better. But having the team to be a part of it, along with the founder, I think is going to go a really, really long way in 2025.
Welcome back to another episode of the Marketing Millennials. Today's episode, we're talking influencer marketing trends for 2025. Which influencers should you work with? Creative ways to use influencers, an underrated channel you're overlooking, and a format you need to try. Our guest, Brittany Garth-Freeman, is a global business coach and a social media consultant and the owner of Pink Ink. She's worked with some of the biggest brands like Disney, Microsoft, and Hyatt. She's here to break down the strategies you'll want to steal for 2025. Let's dive in. What is up, Brittany? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I want to get this kicked off right away because we want to talk about influencer trends. And I know you have a bunch of influencer trends to talk about for 2025. So let's just get into it. Let's get into why you think influencers is so important before we get into the trends for influencer.
Gotcha. Okay. So I know this year for sure, there's been like a lot of talk about whether or not, brands still need to use influencers. And I think even though that things have shifted as far as how they'll use different influencers or the type of influencers or how much they can spend on influencer marketing has changed, there still is definitely a huge benefit of using influencer marketing, especially if you're an e-commerce brand.
Okay. I mean, knowing the content world, like people are not trusting us institutions anymore. They're not trusting companies anymore. They want faces, they want brands, and influencers already have a trusting audience. I mean, there are certain type of influencers you should avoid, certain influencers that aren't worth the money, but
Yeah.
But let's go into some trends you're seeing that people should stick with for 2025.
I definitely think the biggest thing right now with influencer marketing is to make sure that we're properly vetting influencers, not just based on how many followers that they have, but definitely the type of audience that they have. I could write a book on how many of my own clients are like, oh, I want this influencer because she has 2 million followers, but maybe there's not a whole bunch of engagement. Maybe her, audience has nothing to do with the type of audience that you're trying to sell your product to. So a lot of times that tends to be an issue. So I'm thinking for 2025, there's going to be more of a demand of brands wanting to work with more micro influencers and definitely more influencers that have that niche based type of target audience, not just, where they're taking brand deals from any type of brand, because again, it's not going to come off authentic. And again, it's going to go back to that whole trust issue. I think another huge trend we're going to see in 2025 as it comes to like influencer marketing is the actual owners, like the actual CEOs coming to be their own ambassadors, being in the front now and not so much in the back. Like I love the example of Huda with Huda Beauty. Like she really stepped up this year. She always, I feel, has been the face of Huda Beauty, but I think she relied on influencer marketing a lot more in the previous years. And you can see now her actually trying her own product, taking off the actual filters. She has this YouTube page that's really dedicated to her and how she views her own actual cosmetic line. And I think we're going to see more founders being their own influencer, being their own ambassador moving forward with 2025.
I want to go back to the first point and then I'll talk a little bit of the second point. What is the best way that brands should vet influencers? Like what is like the checklist to go and vet an influencer?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I could talk all night about this one. The very first thing that I would look for when we're looking for quality influencers is definitely seeing who they've worked with in the past if I'm kind of just scrolling through your grid, like I know there's like laters out there, there's all types of apps where you can kind of log in and see their actual numbers and stuff like that. But I need to see it from a level of what the consumers are looking for. And if you've worked with tons of brands that are similar to my own brand that I'm trying to connect you with, it's not going to be a good fit. Because if last week you were talking about a nail polish line, and then this week I'm trying to pay you $10,000 to talk about my client's brand that has a nail polish line, it's not going to work. The trust is absolutely not going to be there. So that's number one. Another good thing is how they actually communicate about the brands that they are working with. It's so crazy the amount of influencers that I've worked with over the years where they have like a script and it's kind of coming off very script like when they're talking about the actual brand. And again, it doesn't come off authentic, or you can tell they kind of rush through the content just to kind of get it done. So we really need to be able to see a body of work as far as the past partnerships that they've had, because it'll really let you know how your stuff is going to come out after you've submitted the brief to them, and you're obviously looking for it to get done on time.
What do you do if it's like a brand new influencer that has no prior work, but they have a good audience, they are powerful in their niche, they have a strong voice. Let's say there are those influencers who are there to get ready with me every single day, that
Right.
probably use your product already. How do you vet someone like that who is just doesn't have a who's never done a sponsorship?
I would say for folks like that, because they're absolutely a really great fit, it's really going to be on us, right? To make sure that the brief we're sending over to them is not cookie cutter. So it needs to really be specific to what they've already done in the past, what they're most known for in the first place. And also, I like to give them examples like, hey, I know you may be brand new, but here's an actual creator that we worked with in the past, and it got really great engagement, it got really great conversions, so that they can see an example themselves. So it's not necessarily the vetting for them, it's more so making sure we're kind of holding their hand in a sense as they're creating the content so that it makes sense, but it's true to them as well.
Okay, so the number one trend you have is vetting of influencers, making sure you vet the right influencers, make sure you have the right brief, look at their prior content. The second one you've alluded to is the founder influencer, like the creator. How do you recommend brands utilizing their founder in an
Mm-hmm.
authentic way that doesn't come off cheesy? Because we've seen these celebrity brands that look a little fake now, that they're just attached onto some sort of VC firm, and it's kind of
Yeah.
fake. And then you have brands like Rare Beauty who are really doing it very well. So how do you recommend people using their founder?
I would definitely say tapping into community marketing, which we know is really big in 2024. Pull the curtain behind, like, what does your team have going on? What are you doing in the day to day as you're kind of putting together this particular product, this launch? The more we can see BTS that includes the team, that includes the founder, if they have a really bubbly personality, if you will, that matches with the actual product or the brand, that's even better. But having the team to be a part of it, along with the founder, I think is going to go a really, really long way in 2025. Because BTS has really always been proven to convert really well and to come off a little bit more organic, just in marketing, just in general, especially socials, TikTok, Instagram, and even Snapchat right now.
Yeah, I think the behind the scenes content, if you know how to do it well and you have a good social team or a good social person that could know how to work the platforms very well, I think that's the best time of like showing people how they make the product, showing how they use the
Exactly.
product, showing the story behind it. Because right now, there's every product is basically a commodity out there, and what's separating you is who's behind the brand and why the people behind the brand.
Absolutely. I've made big purchases myself based upon, oh, you know what? Even though there are two shades of pink lipstick, I really love this person that's behind it. I can see their passion. I can see their team. I can see what ingredients that they're using. Being able to show that, I think, is going to set you apart because, right now consumers are making choices. They're not just spending frivolously like they might have done in the past. They're really trying to make a decision of who's the best that aligns, I think, also with their own personal needs and their own ethics also.
So we have the first trend of working with micro influencers, vetting those micro influencers.
Mm-hmm.
The second trend, founder behind the scenes type content, make sure you authentically do it, but also tell the story, tell what's in the product, tell it authentically. What's another trend you have for 2025?
I think this one is still kind of piggybacking on community marketing, but I think you're going to see a lot more brands bringing on or kind of spotlighting their own customers. Like I saw a lot of this year where there were a lot of brand trips. You know how brand trips with the biggest influencer in the world was a thing, and a lot of them now are saying no, we want it to be on a smaller scale, and we want to actually make this some type of giveaway, if you will, where we're going to select one of our real customers. We want them to come and to create content with us, with our founder, with our team, in whatever is this place. Maybe it's a brand dinner, maybe they went over to Italy, whatever it is. They're using more of their own consumers to be a part of campaigns right now. And I think, again, that's going to be something that's going to continue on throughout 2025 also.
I think it's super interesting because you've talked about three different types of influencers. And when you think about influencers, you think, oh, it has to be someone that's a creator on social platforms. But you talked about, well, there are micro creators that are on other platforms that have niche audiences that might be great for you. You can also use your founder as an influencer,
Absolutely.
and then you can use your community as influencers too. And we're not talking about just, there's so many different types of influencers. I think people are forgetting that it's not only the content creators. There's so many different ways to think about quote unquote influencer marketing.
Exactly.
What other things are you seeing that are super interesting that people should pay attention to?
I think I think it's the type of platform that people are relying on as far as conversion or building up, a community. I'm going back to that C word again. Like, for example, we all know, TikTok is struggling. We're not really sure what's going to happen there. And a lot of folks are shifting to Snapchat as far as being relatable and sharing more of that BTS, having an actual series being created that we already know may not work as well on Instagram for a day-to-day basis type of deal. But again, not having the same type of content on every single platform that they're on. Like I have clients now, they're like, I want to be on Pinterest, I want to be on TikTok, Snapchat, I want to be everywhere. But you can't use the same type of content on every single platform. It's not going to convert or it's not going to do anything at all. So people are really making sure that they're switching up the content based upon whatever's the goal is for that particular platform. Whether that's I want to grow, I want to convert, I want a community.
I think that's super important. I think, and that's one reason why you would tap into an influencer as well, right?
For
If you
sure.
don't understand Snapchat, you either could bring a content creator in house to be that face of Snapchat, or
Exactly.
you work with a creator who knows Snapchat. But another point you were making too is like, if you can't go personalized on each platform in the format, you might as well just stick on the one or two platforms where you can be authentically posting on that platform.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Instagram, I think, is always going to be most of us, number one, but there's a lot of great conversions happening over on Snapchat right now, also.
Let's talk a little bit about Snapchat because a lot of people, I don't think, use Snapchat as much as you like. I think Gen Z are locked in
They're
on
locked in.
Snapchat
They're so
more.
locked in on Snapchat right now.
Yeah, but I don't think millennials plus are knowing that this is actually a platform that still exists because we used to use it maybe in college or never used it at all.
Exactly.
So what? How do you use Snapchat as a platform? What are some ways that people should think about it?
I say over there, if you want to use a creator over there, which I'm highly suggesting to get a creator for Snapchat, because again, even though it's been out for a while, what's working over there is brand new and it's changing every single day. So if you're going to use a creator that specifically is trained, they knows everything about Snapchat, that's the way to go. But creating a series is what is working the best. It doesn't need to be today we're talking about the color blue and then that's it. We're going to move on to another really cool reel. That's not going to work. It has to be something where people are following along. They need to feel like you're taking them on some type of journey, some type of storytelling about the actual brand. And it can still be centered around the team, the products, the CEO, whatever's going to work for your particular brand, but it needs to be in a series format. That is working tremendously right now. I've seen for e-commerce brands, personal brands, all of them really, it's really working compared to, again, Instagram. You kind of can test out different things, but Snapchat is the place to be, especially right now as we're getting closer to the end of the year, because again, so many people are fearful to really spend their ad dollars or influencer budget on TikTok because we're kind of in between of what we think may happen or not in the new year.
I think that that's a point that I want to double click on too is the serialized content that you're
Yeah,
talking about. I think we know as consumers that we have watched reality TV, we've
exactly.
watched game shows, we've watched MTV growing up. There's all these things that have worked in the past. And how can you do that for your brand? Maybe the great thing about the iPhone era is that you could do it low production
For sure.
behind the scenes. If you have a good editor, or you don't even need a good editor, you can make it authentic. But double clicking on the serialized content, I think even for TikTok, even though we are in limbo with TikTok, but there's YouTube shorts too. You could
Yeah,
do it on Instagram stories. There's so many ways you can double click into serialized content that people will pay attention to. I think
absolutely.
that's super, super important. Even the head of Instagram was talking about how you should get into more carousel posts on Instagram, but that's the same theory of like people want to scroll to like the next thing to see what's next, and that's the same idea with
Exactly.
serialized content. So I totally agree on that. So we're going down pretty cool rabbit holes here of what you think for 2025 people should be thinking about. What are some things that worked in 2024 that you think are still going to be working in 2025?
Let me think. Let me think about this. Definitely, like I was kind of mentioning before, a lot of the things that I'm thinking are going to be on trend in 2025 is only because we tested it out or we did it the whole year or maybe a quarter and it actually worked. It converted over to a really high KPI. So I'm still going to say using more micro based creators is the way to go because it's a really, if you notice right now, that you're opened up with us talking about the trust issues with influencers. So if we know that our consumers are fearful that it doesn't feel authentic, well, that means we have to shift to more authentic content. And I think having a creator that's not based on how big or celebrity like that they are and more about, we know this person is known for talking about organic goods, then we need to make sure we're aligning with people that have that type of loyal audience. And a lot of them, again, are micro creators. A lot of the bigger creators that I've seen, they've kind of grown out of either being an influencer, they're starting their own brands right now. And again, it can be kind of murky to work with such large influencers that have their own brand and they're selling products as well. And that's why I say micro influencers has worked tremendously in 2024 for all types of clients that I've had this year. And working with the CEO or the founder, whoever's the face, of the brand and creating content around them has worked really, really well.
I know you gave an example of a great founder, Brad. What are some good examples if people want to go look at and say, "Hey, look at these companies; they're doing it very well in the space."
Okay, I'm going to use Sephora and Sephora Squad. People, I mean, it was all about Sephora Squad a couple of weeks ago because, again, Sephora opens it up to the average everyday girl, everyday guy, whomever, to be a part of Sephora Squad. And what they did was they didn't say, hey, we're just going to hand select these people. They said, no, it doesn't matter how many followers you have. It doesn't matter what you have going on your actual page. You have to apply for the process. They made it a real big thing. And then the people were able to actually vote. There are other people that didn't apply to be a part of Sephora Squad. that blew up. Sales for Sephora blew up even more than it normally would have during that particular time period. And that's because, again, they got the community involved. They made sure that they had the everyday person to be a part of the brand. And now that they have their brand new squad for 2025, those same creators are going to test out their products and talk about the brand, every week. That is a strategy that has worked year over year over year for Sephora. And it only makes more sense they're continuing on with it in 2025. So that would be a really great example with Sephora Squad.
I think it's also really good because when you think about influencer, you don't only think about working with influencers as a single post, but
Mhm.
as a campaign. And as a campaign, you can use it for UGC, you can use it for
Exactly.
paid advertising, you can use it for storytelling on your feeds. There's so many ways you can unlock this, and I think people are starting to catch on as these more long-term locked-in partnerships with micro influencers, not these one-off posts that people did in 2023 and 2024.
That's such a great point. You're absolutely right about that. And I notice just kind of testing it out when you have an influencer where you're like, look, let's lock this in for like 3 months, 6 months. It goes a lot further than just a one-time post and let's see how it does. So yeah, that's so true.
And one last question I have for you is, and I like to ask everybody in this podcast this question, but what is a marketing hill you would die on?
Marketing hill that I would die on. Let me see. You know what? I think we battled a lot with this year, and that's the difference between a social media manager and a content creator. I don't know if you've ever come across this before where a lot of brands are like, oh, it's all the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. You need to have a strategy. There needs to be someone that, they're known for this particular type of job if you're looking to get a KPI versus the content creator. They're there to create. They're not necessarily there to run the ads and do all those different types of things. So they're there to create the content to be in the ad. So I think that's definitely a hill that I would die on because I think it gets confusing sometimes for, I think, the consumers, the clients, everyone, that there's a big difference between a marketer, a social media manager, and a content creator. They're not the same job.
I think social media managers are clapping in the audience right now.
100%.
And that's also something that we should destigmatize is a social media manager is not supposed to know every single platform. That's where they go and get a creator to help them with that platform because they might know, or their job is set the strategy, make sure the strategy is executed,
Bingo.
make sure it's communicated internally.
Yeah,
Because
for sure.
you forget about internally how many internal politics there are in marketing.
Yes.
And how many different, you have to work with graphic designers, you have to work with the content team, the marketing team, the creative team. And content creators are very good at just creating.
Right,
And that's what they should be stuck
exactly.
on. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think double down on that is a great marketing hill. And lastly, where can people find you and what you're doing?
Absolutely. So the name of my agency is Pink Inc. So it's PINQINC. You can find us on pretty much any social media platform. And you can find me, I'm the founder of Pink Inc. Anywhere at I am Brittany Freeman, which is just my name.
Well, go follow Brittany. She's awesome. She posts great content. She knows she's deep in the influencer. And I know she specializes in beauty and fashion. So if you are a brand that is looking for help from Brittany, definitely hit her up.
Let me know. Yeah, reach out.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. Keep tuning in to hear more great insights from the coolest marketers from around the world. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and follow the Marketing Millennials podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, I would greatly appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating. It helps bring more marketers into our community.